this computer. Perfect. We're off. So this evening, all about getting better. And I've been chatting to David a lot and about what we wanted to do tonight. And, you know, he's very open to giving all the advice and help he can. But of course, he can only answer your questions. And I think getting better, and something that we've discussed a lot on the podcast, is actually really quite difficult to keep on getting better and know how to improve your grading, improve your finals, etc., etc. So I thought I'd come up with a little presentation here that hopefully will give you an idea of, or maybe a way of improving your performance. So I think for me, when I work with individuals, and you know, I'm sure, David, you had a bit of a dream when you were a kid about being a world champion, or certainly there was a point at one point where you thought, do you know what, I'd really like to be a world champion. I mean, I know certainly Ollie wants to be a world champion, right?
Yeah, of course. It's, you know, it's the ultimate, isn't it? Be the best in the world. There is nothing more you can achieve, really.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, when you've got a dream like that, it all of a sudden it certainly drives you on to improve yourself, and that's why it spends obviously tireless hours practicing, working with you, learning from you, and he's got a bit of a plan in place, right? I mean, I'm sure you guys talk about how to get him from where he was maybe 2 years ago to being world number one. Would that be true?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all plan and preparation, isn't it, really? There's no point in going testing in completely different conditions that you'll race the next world championships on, or there's no point in going race a class that's not relevant to something you want to go and achieve the best results possible. So, yeah, absolutely. Putting a little plan together and making sure you maximise your effort to achieve your goal, it's what everybody does in sport.
Yeah, so with that in mind then, that, you know, with the plan that David and Ollie have, there's a process of getting from point A to point B, and I think if you look at any elite performer, whether they know it or not, they have got a process that allows them to improve their performance and to deliver some form of consistency to be a consistent performer. And I kind of pose the question to, you know, anyone that wants to improve their racing, and I make no bones about it. I want to win a national A final in 12 scale. That is my dream, and I'm not shy at being that driven. And I think that kind of comes across in many ways. And so, outside of driving ability, I posed the question: would everyone's application and knowledge match that of the top 10 drivers in an A final? And I think, if you take the driving aside, the foundations are already there for a lot of those drivers. Would you not say, David?
Yeah, I mean, prep work, anybody can perform the prep work. That's just dedication and putting the effort in Monday to Friday. I mean, that's there and available for everybody to do. The knowledge, that's something which you just gain over time. And that's where we keep saying to you, it's important to, if you're unsure, ask a question of the better driver at the local club, or someone that's in an A final. When you see them, just ask them questions. If you're unsure about something, make sure you don't keep struggling over the same thing. Just make sure you get help in that area. And the knowledge, you just slowly pick it up over time. There's no shortcut to that. You just got to work at it.
Yeah, and so I think, you know, the knowledge and skill acquisition to perform is so broad, isn't it? I mean, and I've listed some of the topics that I think of, and I spring to mind, and if there's any there that, you know, you feel need adding, and there will be inevitably, but and these are actual attributes to making you drive faster and get past the finishing line that aren't necessarily directly related to you turning your thumb a bit quicker or you predicting the car a little bit better. These are like the foundations of what allow you to, when you then put the car down on the track and then you put it all together in an A final or your respective A final. If you've been a D final driver, your respective A final suddenly feels like a B final because you feel like you've moved up 2 finals and all of a sudden you feel pressure and all these great things. And so these are all parts of the big picture. And so I've tried to keep it sort of car related. And so what you see on the screen is, and hopefully you can see the podium that's on the far right hand side of the screen, which is the podium to the right of the equal sign. These are all cogs that go together to make you perform. And so if you're not proficient in all of these areas, it's impossible to think that actually going to the racetrack and hitting a hairpin or hitting an apex on a hairpin is the ultimate that you need to practice. Actually, it's only one of the teeth on one of the cogs that actually makes up the end goal, which is finishing across the line in front of everyone else. And so what I then did was I then tried to take one of those cogs, so the practice session. So if you went along for a practice session, I think we've talked about this on the podcast, haven't we, about going along for a practice session and actually trying to recreate the grip of a national, the emotion of a national. It's so difficult to do, but yet so many people go along and practice. And I think that when you're practicing, there are two types of practice. One is, still skill acquisition, and that's what you can do on the racetrack itself with the car. And I think the other part of a practice session is mechanical equipment and your expertise of what you're actually trying to do with the car itself. Not you, not the thumbs, but actually the car. Because if the car's not right, then how can you ultimately drive it around the bend? Because as much as you're a brilliant driver, David, but if you took out someone's car that was uber tweaked and then stuck it in the A final, you wouldn't do very well, would you? Not in an A final.
No, not at all. It's looking at the cogs you have there, it's about learning how to prepare a car for a race exactly the same way, of repetition. So when you go out there, you give yourself the best chance possible to perform at your best. Being lackadaisical in the pits and taking shortcuts and you're not quite bothered and it will do, well, that's a recipe for disaster before you start. So yeah, even when you're practicing in low grip or clubs, you can always learn something and always practice something at all times. I can guarantee you now, if I was to throw a brand new car kit at Ollie, he would build that car exactly the same as his race car. He'd put it on the track and it would drive exactly the same as his race car, because he knows how to build what he wants to drive. And that's something which you only get with time and dedication, Monday to Friday between races.
Yeah, and I think when as you're getting better, you're looking to scoop up this knowledge, in all the various components, and a practice session. The reason why I brought up practice session, because I think, the practice session could still be a club meet. You could still go to a club meet and work on these details. It doesn't mean that you need to go and hire a hall for the day, hire Eastbourne out or hire MB models out. You can still go along to a club meet, can't you, and work on something like a Sunday morning at West Kent. It's a practice session for you, right? Until if Mark Stiles turns up and runs, there's an element of the ego that says, well, it's a bit of a practice session, but I still wouldn't want someone that I regard as a good driver. You still wouldn't want them beating you. So it's a difficult one for you. But for us mortals, that go along, we could use that as a practice session.
Absolutely. That's the whole point in going. You're there to enjoy yourself, but if you're there and you've got a goal, you want to win a national, then you should be using those events to practice and learn something every single opportunity you can get. We don't have many permanent facilities in this country, so going club racing is all we've got. So you just have to make the most of it. Yeah.
So then I thought, well, let's talk about driving skills, because that's everyone's mind, I think, is I need to drive better. And I think for me, when I come away from a race meeting, a weekend, I break down and I apply this stuff. This is part of how my mind works in trying to improve myself. Looking at the driving skill and breaking a track down into its various components. And so, driving along the straight, and I think it's quite a good one. Driving along the straight is not just driving along a straight, is it? I mean, you're trying to prime the car for what's about to go to the end of the straight, or going to the bend at the end of the straight, and coming into the or onto the straight as well, right?
I was going to say, it starts before you even get to the straight, to be honest. If you have a hairpin coming onto the main straight, your choices are limited because of the hairpin. You're zero speed basically as you come on. But if you have a sweep or a curve coming onto the main straight, it's how can you bleed the steering away as quickly as possible to get the wheels pointing in the right direction and get you down the main straight on the correct line already for your exit. So when we're driving down the main straight, we're thinking about the end of the straight. When we're entering, when we're leaving the last corner, we're already thinking about where we want the car to be positioned. Most of the time, as a little tip, there'll be a tape line, or there'll be grid markings. There'll be something. And generally for me personally, I'll find something to aim at as I leave that last corner. I'll find something I want to aim at and hit as I leave the corner. And if I leave that and get my repetition good and well, the end of the main straight for me becomes a lot easier.
Mm. Yeah, it seems so simple when you think about it, but of course, when you're at a meeting and there's so much going on, if you've not isolated, I'm going to work on the straight today, it just gets lost, right, in the furore of everything else going on in you.
And it is the easiest part of the track, but it's also the easiest part of the track to lose time on coming on and off of it. The amount of times people have come to me and says, "Oh, you've got great main straight speed. Why? Your motor, blah, blah, blah." Well, yeah, but my entry onto the main straight is 2 miles an hour faster than yours. Multiply that by 30 meters, and by the time we get to the end of the main straight, yeah, I've chewed you and passed you. But that's corner speed. That's learning how to bleed the car on and bleed the car off to keep the momentum going as best you possibly can. That's practice, more practice, and just learning what's right for you.
Yeah, that back markers is certainly something that stands out for someone that's trying to get better. And of course, you get first time out. We've all been there. It's been a while since you've been there, Dave. But Ant and I, we've been there. Bottom heat. You're getting better, and you're having to come up behind back markers. And I have ruined people's days because I'm driving fast. Think I'm better than them, no regard, sketchy car control, wipe them out, but I've got past them and I'm on, and I think taking back markers for someone that's improving is a huge area of where you can actually pick up a lot of time, where actually, if you just gave yourself some patience, it might be a different story.
If you actually gave yourself a chance and picked a logical place on the track to make a move where it was safe and easy, then you could potentially save yourself time. You take Alex and Ollie, the guys that race in England, they'll send it down the inside on a hairpin on the tightest part of the track, in the most difficult part of the track, because they have that control available to them. But if you don't, pick somewhere that's easy for you. Keep away from the car in front until you get to the point on the track where you want to pass, and then make it known you want to come past. So it's easy for you and for them, and then there's no accident.
Yeah, and I think when you start to sort of move yourself up of the grid, and particularly in the nationals, again, you start being one of those wannabe A finalists and those wannabe B finalists and C finalists. All of a sudden, you find yourself in a situation where there's guys that are 3-4 meters behind you, about to lap you, and they're already shouting in your ear, and sometimes you kind of get the other end of the spectrum, don't you? You get the guy that drives through you, which has been me, and then you get the other end of the spectrum, which is guy that's shouting on the rostrum to let you through, and again that creates a situation, makes you feel uncomfortable. So a straight and overtaking a back marker, which should be two really simple principles or simple processes, can actually become really quite hard.
It can be. I mean, at our English nationals, we try and discourage people shouting and lapping on the driver's stand. We try and stop all of that. We do have referees that should call you through, and we try and educate everybody with etiquette on the track that if someone behind you is faster and they are closing quickly, make it obvious you're going to let them pass on the next corner. So we do try and educate our drivers at our nationals in that way to make life easier. But again, when you are the car behind and you are the car making the pass, it's your responsibility to do it cleanly.
And something that and I think on the other end of the spectrum of something that seems easy, like straights and overtaking back markers, and something that Ant and I talk about probably no more than 10 or 12 times a day, is entry speed, which is on there. Now, Ant, we've talked about that quite a lot. What's your feelings on entry speed?
Well, my feelings on entry speed are you criticise my entry speed too much.
Only because I love you, Ant.
I have a hard time reconciling corner speed and entry speed, and just knowing that slow in can equal fast out doesn't always tally with what my finger does when I try and get off the throttle a tiny bit or a lot. And actually, when we go and race at West Kent and I marshal, and we've got enough for 2 heats, and I'm marshalling your heat, David, seeing you compared to others, you do go in a lot slower than people that are not as fast as you. And it's obvious when you're watching, you come up behind someone, and it's something that I need to work on, but I don't necessarily think it's quite what you make it out to be, Stu.
No. And listen, I'm sort of labouring the point that we've talked about it a lot. I mean, you're totally different driver now than you were, as we all are, hopefully, a year ago. But it's something that we have discussed heavily, isn't it?
Often.
Yeah, about that. What are your thoughts on entry speed, David?
Entry speed is to do with how much front tyre grip you have and how quickly you can get to that apex of the corner. There's nothing to stop you entering a hairpin and just banging full lock on with full gas still, waiting, then jab the brake, and at that moment it will turn, and then you can leave the corner. Grossly inefficient way to drive. Burn up your front tyres very, very quickly, get the motor very, very hot, but for a while during the race, it will get you around that corner at a decent speed. But learning how much front traction you have, feeding the car into the corner with the least amount of lock to do the job required, bleeding the speed off in a manner which you can control, gains corner speed, keeps the motor cooler, and your car will last longer into the run. That is just a feeling thing you get from a car when you've learned to drive it for a long time. And that's what makes a great driver truly great.
Don't disagree with you there. Yeah, and listen, and I think all I'm trying to do here is pose the question of obviously the different topics that it takes, or the different ingredients that are needed to deliver a driver that is a final grade or European champion grade or world champion grade. And these lists you could make them longer than they are, but I think I'm just trying to make people think a little bit deeper than just trying to go faster around a bend. And I think when you start to open it up a little bit, you can actually find a way of improving, and we'll come on to that in just a second.
It's a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can recognise what the puzzle is with a few pieces missing, but put all the pieces into the puzzle and you'll just go quicker.
Yeah.
Marginal gains, right?
Marginal gains.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ant.
Say again?
I said thanks, Ant. Marginal gains.
So again, so this one is really sort of race meeting car prep and process, and I think you touched on it last week, and huge apologies to everyone that I didn't manage to upload it on our new YouTube channel. My computer crashed and it took away all recording, which was a really great week last week. But you spoke about the process of when you get the car off the track. If you feel it's tweaked, don't just take the wheels off and the battery out. And if you feel it's tweaked, that's the time to try and find where it is.
Yeah, the answers are in front of you. If you take a bad car off the track and you have tyres on it, you've got the battery in it, it's there all in front. The answer is right in front of you. So before you take it all apart, check the tweak again as you did before. Check it is correct. Check you didn't make a mistake. Check a spring hasn't collapsed. Check everything straight as it sits, because the answer is right there in front of you. Check your front tyre wear. If it's positive camber on one side and negative on the other, well, there